Well, would you look at that? This video is way late, as per usual. I'm going to clarify something here. I am going to be reading from a script, so if I look down every so often, just know that I'm not, looking away from the camera at something completely random. It's my script that I wrote for this, so here we go. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Looking back on last year's films brought back a lot of memories that I didn't think I would be returning to. Because last year in general for me wasn't necessarily that great. I had a pretty tragic death in the family that I'm not going to go into too much, but it affected me a lot where I just didn't want to work for a month. I had to say goodbye to some friends that I made in the film circle because they were doing one thing and I was doing another thing. And I kept trying to get jobs. Believe it or not, YouTube is not my full-time job. It probably never will be. The idea of trying to become an internet personality just wasn't really in the cards for me for, 10 years now that this channel has been up. Jesus, I've been uploading videos for 10 years. That's something that I also forgot to celebrate last year, was my 10-year anniversary for this particular channel. And granted, I could still make a video after this about how much has changed since the start of this channel, but it might just have to be for another day. Just because 2024 for me personally wasn't so great, that doesn't necessarily mean there wasn't any good movies to watch. On the contrary, there was a lot. And granted, I didn't get around to as many movies as the previous years. In fact, if you look at my letterbox that I will be linking in the description below, you will find that I watched around 70, 75 movies from 2024, which isn't a lot to really pull from for a list like this, but it was enough for me. There was a lot of really great and sometimes experimental films that broke through the mold to give audiences a new way to kind of look at things and understand the world. And this was also the same year that superhero movies kind of didn't really happen all that much. I mean, outside of Deadpool and Wolverine last year, there wasn't a lot of big tentpole movies like Deadpool and Wolverine that last year. I mean, yeah, certainly there was sequels and some other things to previously established IP, but nothing really felt like it was big and grand. There wasn't a ton of films that you could say defined that year like Barbenheimer did with the Barbie Oppenheimer double feature. 2024 just kind of felt like a lull year. There was definitely some hits, don't get me wrong, but it didn't have necessarily the same impact as what 2023 did. But again, that's not to say that there wasn't any good films or even tremendous films. And there are 20 in this list this year. 20 films that I felt were the best of last year. But truth be told though, the reason why this video took so long to get together and actually, me deciding to shoot it, was for a lot of other reasons besides the memories and whatnot. I recently restarted my theater kid arc, as the kids say, and yeah, I mean, I got to be in various productions this past year. I got to be in Sherlock Holmes last fall. I got to be in Fools, playing a completely different character than the last time I was in it. And then, recently, I just finished, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which was amazing. Granted, there was time between productions to actually make this video, so what else happened? Well, pretty much everything. My mood for creating videos like this one hasn't necessarily been that great. I've been glued to my phone for the past few months at least, endlessly doom scrolling and catastrophizing every little detail, every little news article that comes out that just makes me feel anxious and overridden with so many emotions, so many different things. It was enough for me to just stay bedridden for some days. Suffice to say, the past year and some of the other things that have happened this year um, has not necessarily been good for my overall mental health. What has helped me has been a few things. For one thing is my therapy that I've already been going through previously. I've been able to articulate what I have been frustrated with in my life, and I have actively seeked out what I needed to do to help myself grow and become better. It hasn't always been easy though. Some days I've just laid in bed, but sometimes just doing at least one thing around the house or in my community has helped my mood tremendously. I've also been channeling a lot of what I've been feeling these past few years into screenplays. Not all of them have been great, but the process has been therapeutic to say the least. But truly what has been helping me every single day has been this close-knit group of friends I've made while being in my community theater. Ever since the first show of this past season, we all got together in a group chat and a Discord group, and we plan events and things that we can go do together, and it's been very, very awesome to be a part of. And I am truly thankful for all the people that I have been able to meet in this way, and I truly love all of them. Love being around them, and I love working with them. And that love extends to the films of 2024, the ones unafraid to show the world something new, something different, something unique. In a world that seems to be wanting to take away the beauty that comes from seeing different people and cultures express themselves, these are the films that gave me hope during a time of crisis. But first, my honorable mentions. The honorable mentions this year are as follows: Superman, the Christopher Reeve story; Transformers 1; Memoir of a Snail; Terrifier 3; Piece by Piece; Lisa Frankenstein; Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes; Saturday Night; Civil War; and Nosferatu. And now for my top 20 films of 2024. In the world of John Wick-style action films, Dev Patel's directorial debut stands out amongst the rest. Monkey Man is an odyssey of revenge, told in the backdrop of political corruption and authoritarianism. While I'm not equipped to discuss the cultural side of this movie, I felt a lot of what this movie had to offer with the main character's quest to take down the people responsible for destroying his village and the brutal events that have happened to his mother and his people. While it was long in the tooth, admittedly, the eventual third act climax is one that works really well. All the little plot lines and story beats coming together to a head in a fun mess. Dev Patel has always been a great actor to me, and he gives a solid performance in an action film that had some of the best sequences this year. Okay, I really had a toss-up between a few films for this spot, but Twisters gave me something that I've desperately needed: genuine chemistry between characters. Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones work so well together in this film as once foils for each other and then developing into a working partnership to eventually getting closer together. It was a dynamic that worked really well. When I saw Minari a few years ago, I became very interested in where Lee Isaac Chung went next with his career, and to give him the opportunity to tell another story in the Twister series actually made sense to me, given Minari was about living in the Midwest where tornadoes and twisters regularly appear. When I saw the Twister effects here, I was, for a lack of a better word, blown away. Granted, the soundtrack doesn't fully reach the peak of the original, but it did have some good tracks. To me, Twisters is one of the more ideal blockbuster movies I could ever ask for. An effective premise with a great cast and a spectacle that is sprinkled with social commentary. In this one, it's how, in the light of climate change affecting large areas with people, there are companies trying to buy up houses, even though, for a lot of these people, there is literally nowhere they can go. Granted, the filmmakers deny this aspect, but it is in the movie. One thing about this movie that I didn't like was the decision for the main leads to not kiss. I know it's a cliche that, these two love interests would actually kiss at the end of a movie, but for much of the movie, they use a lot of the same tropes. And I understand that Steven Spielberg thought it would be too cheesy to have the main leads kiss, but again, you built up this relationship, you might as well have paid it off. But that being said, Twisters was a really fun movie that I definitely enjoy and do enjoy rewatching every once in a while.
Don't get too hung up on reason. They just keep killing.
One thing you will see a lot in this list is that there are more than a few of these films that are made by first-time feature filmmakers, and I definitely was shocked by how good In a Violent Nature was when I saw it. The directing is so patient and methodical. There is a lot that they are asking of the audience, to follow along a slow-walking Jason-esque slasher as we get to see most of the movie from his perspective. Johnny is such a great character to follow in this film, and the kills that he does are so brutal, some have stuck with me for a long while. And if you've seen the film, you know what I mean when I say that Yoga will never be seen the same again. But the thing that surprised me the most as a viewer is how the change in perspective made me paranoid. And this is a spoiler for those who have not seen the movie, so click off now and go watch the film. It's good, trust me. At a certain point, the film breaks away from Johnny as we then follow the escape and rescue of our final girl character of this horror film. And because we're trained as an audience to pay attention to how Johnny operates and moves and where he would hide in a situation, when she stares into the forest at the end, we are really in her shoes, paranoid that Johnny is out there, staring at us, planning his next move, even though he's not really there. If it is anything I had a problem with in this movie, it would be the dismemberment scene of one of the characters that took a little bit too long for me. I get why it takes so long in this scene, but I wouldn't have minded if it was a few seconds or even a minute shorter in my opinion. But it's still a really good movie.
Boy, are we so lucky we ran into you guys! Boy, are we so lucky we ran into you guys!
Wow, those guys are jerks.
Wow, those guys are jerks.
I'll be honest, when they announced that Inside Out was getting a sequel, I was apprehensive, but curious. Granted, the ending of the first movie basically gave way to spring into a second film about puberty, and thankfully the sequel worked really well. Unfortunately, some of the original cast was recast with other actors, but that didn't distract from what was most important in this movie, and it was its story about not only puberty, but trying to define a true sense of self during such a crazy time in all of our lives. Especially when new emotions come into play, including the well-meaning and flawed anxiety, and I really loved how they approached this movie with a better understanding of emotions and how they're important to all of us. That there isn't a bad emotion, just different aspects of ourselves that we can control. And that is a really good thing to put into a movie about emotions, especially for a movie that is aimed towards kids. Sidebar though, the spin-off show, Dream Productions, is an absolute hoot, and actually gives us breadcrumbs of what they wanted to do with Riley in a sequel, but Disney was too skittish about the whole thing. So yeah, definitely check out Inside Out 2 and Dream Productions.
Did you guys ever look at any other suspect? You would know what to do.
In what will most likely be Clint Eastwood's final feature film, Juror Number 2 was such an unexpected film that it is one of the most fascinating and engaging legal procedurals I have seen in a long time. I am personally a sucker for good legal films, like 12 Angry Men or Philadelphia, and so a movie where Nicholas Hoult plays a juror who finds that he may have had something to do with the death of a woman, of which an innocent man might see prison time for a crime he didn't commit, really gives Holt a great character to play, having to keep his guilt hidden while grappling with the ramifications if he decides to let this man rot in prison. It's such a fun performance to watch. Still a pain in the ass the way that Warner Brothers treated this film. It was originally slated for a full theatrical release, then it was shifted to a limited with a release on Max. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We're back to HBO Max now. Within a few weeks after the limited theatrical release. It's sad, honestly, because Eastwood has been such an iconic director and a fellow collaborator within the Warner Brothers creative space that it's just sad to see such a massive veteran be treated the way that he did with this movie. It does suck. But Juror Number 2 is a film that is really, really good, and I highly recommend it.
It's vengeance most foul!
Aardman is one of my favorite animation studios in the game, so when it was announced that not only would we be getting a new feature film with the dynamic duo, but it would also serve as a semi-sequel to one of their most iconic shorts, The Wrong Trousers, I was nonetheless excited to see what they would pull. While it isn't as good as Were-Rabbit, it still is a really great animated movie with top-tier animation, fun characters, and a story of friendship where Wallace finally grapples with how he has treated his best friend Gromit over the years. There is a lot of fun gags in this one, and as I said before, it is a really strong film from Aardman, so definitely check that out when you can.
It's not real. 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 What's not real? Who said that?
This is very real.
From first-time feature filmmaker Arkasha Stevenson, The First Omen is a story about how Damien, the Omen's central antichrist, came to be in the story. It follows Nell Tiger-Free in an electric and stunning performance as Margaret, a woman with a past seeking a better life only to stumble upon some nefarious plans in Rome in her new convent that will shake the world forever. The film has a lot to say in how religious institutions try to control women's bodies, especially for the purpose of trying to birth the Antichrist in this particular instance. Not only that, but it was a film that perfectly avoided a curse that some prequels tend to have, where in most prequels we end up with not really caring about the main characters because we know that they aren't in the rest of the series. But this film finds a lot of clever ways to tie it into the rest of the series, but do so while also making us care about our main protagonist. I should also give a shout out to Ralph Ineson, the future Galactus for Fantastic Four, who plays Father Brennan. In a world where most studios don't want to recast important roles in favor of digital doubles, it is great to have a talented actor take on an integral character in this role, not only embodying the character, but giving it his own spin. That I respect.
Remember me.
A decade ago, I remember going to my local cinema, sitting down and taking in the rush that was George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road, a film that did so well it was nominated for a lot of awards at the Oscars. For years, we were teased with new films in the Mad Max universe. A new Mad Max with Tom Hardy had been discussed, but one other film was on the back burner for a bit, and that was Furiosa. Granted, it took them a decade to make it, but it is finally here, and it unfortunately bombed at the box office. For whatever the reason, it sucks that this film didn't get more attention because it is genuinely a fun film filled with color, action, and grit. Anya Taylor-Joy playing a younger Charlize Theron is such a great choice for casting, and she plays Furiosa with confidence and tenacity. The film gives us a background on Furiosa, everything from being kidnapped in the wasteland as a young child to working for Immortan Joe, and it all just works so well for me. It definitely isn't Fury Road in terms of how fast it could be, but its slower pace allows for a lot more quiet scenes to hit harder for Furiosa and for the audience. If it was any film this year that deserved a little bit better, it was Furiosa.
instead of right in front of me. At you.
Cancer is a terrible disease. It affects everyone differently, not just on an individual level, but interpersonally. We Live in Time is a movie not really about the cancer, but the drive to try to make a mark on this world we all live in before we die. And Florence Pugh gives the character such a desire against an ever-present clock. Andrew Garfield plays her partner in the film, and he helps give the film a lot of its big heart moments with Pugh. Both actors have a great chemistry together that when we get to some of the uglier fights of the film, I was honestly distraught. The film is a great example of how when we reframe our lives, we find that while our lives won't be huge or monumental on a grand scale for most of us, they still will have an impact on others, even the ones that are closest to us. And by golly, that ice rink scene, man, at the very end of the movie is directed so goddamn well, and it's so subtle. And it just gets me every time that I watch it. There is just no words, and just uses space and editing so well. It's a beautiful sequence.
I'm not afraid. It's the wizard who should be afraid of me.
Directed by John Chu, director of In the Heights and Crazy Rich Asians, Wicked is part one of a feature film adaptation of the Broadway musical, which, in and of itself, was an adaptation of some novels that were Oz fan fiction. At least that is what I know through the grapevine of the internet. Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba is a shining light in this film, having to deal with a world that is cruel and unjust, and not just to her, but to the talking animals of the world being scapegoated, for a lack of a better term, for the problems of Oz. I ended up really loving the music in this film, and there are some scenes that are really good and impactful. As for Jeff Goldblum as the titular Wizard of Oz, and as someone that has played the Wizard of Oz before, I found his portrayal and the writing thereof of the character to be pretty good. Oz, in my opinion, has always been a charlatan, a man whose power is derived from fear, and what better way to make him even more scummier than for him to be a full-on fascist. Granted, this is based off of the books and the Broadway production, but given the current political climate, it speaks a lot louder than we initially thought. I will say the decision to split this adaptation into two films is such an odd choice because I felt like the film ends off at a pretty good point. But then again, the Broadway musical actually continues after the big Defying Gravity sequence, so I guess it's fine. We'll see where the next part goes in November. I hope it sticks to landing, honestly.
He who can destroy a thing has the real control of it.
In speaking of movies that were split into two parts, Dune Part 2, the anticipated follow-up to Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 1 from 2021, Part 2 is a much more action-packed entry that, in my opinion, is better than Part 1 simply because it's more entertaining to watch. Timothée Chalamet is great as Paul Atreides, continuing his crusade against House Harkonnen with the Fremen with Zendaya. What I love the most here is its sense of scale. I never got to see this in theaters when it came out, but watching it at home made me envious. I kept beating myself up over not seeing such a massive epic of a movie on the big screen with a great surround sound system. I had to listen to this with like headphones, and even then I couldn't quite get all of the details. It was that good. The sound design is good, the sense of scale is good, and overall it was a very entertaining film to watch. And not only that, but this film is drop-dead gorgeous. The cinematography is absolutely amazing, capturing the dunes of Arrakis, and capturing, again, the scale of everything. It just works so, so well.
Witness a miracle.
Heretic was a film that stuck with me for a while. A horror film centered around belief as a whole, set within a house of puzzles and theologic and philosophical discussions. Obviously, the standout performance here is Hugh Grant playing a guy so obsessed with religion and trying to establish the idea that all religions are the same, variations or renditions of a pre-established original religion. It is a movie that works really well from its pacing to its acute sense of tension, even within conversations between Grant and the two Mormon missionary leads of the film, whom, by the way, are also really great in the film as actresses. The ending is also something I think about even after I saw it last year. It's simple, but completely gives me something more to think about in the events of the film.
Somebody who clearly doesn't want to be with you.
Much like every other year, I go to the Eastern Oregon Film Festival, and one film that was the big headliner of the entire festival was a film by the name of Breakup Season. And oh boy, did this film really stand out. Breakup Season is a holiday comedy drama about a breakup that happens between two people while they are at the boyfriend's house and have to kind of coexist in the house until the road's cleared so that, the girlfriend can get to the airport to leave. What was so special about this movie was that it was a film that works as an anti-rom-com of sorts. Usually the trope with this type of movie is that the main couple would find some way to get back together by the end of the film, so it was refreshing to find that the way characters grow in this film is to accept the fact that some relationships just end, and that the best thing to do is accept it and move on 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day at a time. This was also a film that was filmed not just where I currently live, but also in the town where the film festival actively resides. So when I tell you that the screening was electric, that is an understatement. Having an audience of mostly local people get hyped seeing familiar locations in a big movie like this was about as hype as seeing Captain America wield Thor's hammer in Endgame. Breakup Season for me is funny, sweet, and sentimental, and will be among my yearly rewatches for as many Christmases to come. I didn't know too much about this movie before I watched it, and I'm glad I did because the substance is a blast. Demi Moore plays an aging film star who finds out about the substance, a type of drug that gives the people who take it a, quote, second life, via a second body that is younger and more attractive than them. The thing I love about the substance is how blunt it is about its meaning. The body horror of it all, working hand in hand with the film's big themes, drawing a ton from David Cronenberg's filmography, and it works really well. I love how claustrophobic it is at times, putting us in the shoes of the film's main protagonist with many instances with characters getting uncomfortably close to the camera, such as Dennis Quaid, who plays the film's misogynist media mogul. And I honestly can't remember his name, but he was basically playing the misogynist media mogul. And the film's big third act is some of the bloodiest, most insane things I've seen all year, outside of maybe Terrifier 3. I love this movie. I think it's one of the best horror films of the 2020s. It speaks to something that women go through that is a massive critique of Hollywood, and not just Hollywood, just like as how people perceive women in general, and it's very effective. It's a very effective movie.
Hey, I love you.
I know.
You wish you never ever met her.
Challengers was a film I was pretty much late to the party with. I didn't get to see it in theaters, and I'm glad I got to watch it on HBO Max because Challengers was an amazing feature. A three-way tennis match between Zendaya and two other professional tennis players that isn't just spicy, but exciting to watch, with very effective editing and an amazing soundtrack, arguably one of the best of the year in my opinion. Challengers is a truly fun film whose big game-ending scene is so tense and filled with anticipation that it became one of the strongest third acts of the year. Yeah, Challengers is really fun. All the acting's good. I love again, the chemistry between all three leads of this film is just so good. I loved every second of it. Hundreds of Beavers is a case of dedication from the filmmaking team. A low-budget feature film with little to no dialogue that is a long Looney Tunes style story about a fur trapper trying to get hundreds of beavers to get his lot in life. It truly was amazing to see how this film came together as well, with a lot of compositing and fun editing techniques that made this film just a joy to watch. Filled with plenty of great gags and running jokes, I think most people will come away from this film completely refreshed and cheerful. It's really funny, it's really inventive, and yeah, granted, it does look cheap at times, but it's a low-budget indie feature. It looks really good, it's really fun, and I really enjoyed it.
We must become more than we were programmed to be.
From the director of How to Train Your Dragon, The Wild Robot is a very well-made animated film about a robot who learns to love the environment and what it means to be a parent. I loved everything with this film, from its very beautiful and stylish animation to the voice acting from every cast member, and the story of environmentalism in the face of industrialization and climate change is very well put together. The first hour of this film is some of the most amazing bits of filmmaking I've seen. The Wild Robot had me tearing up at just the right moments, and I think anyone will love it when they watch it.
What if I really was someone else? Very far away on the other side of a television screen.
Personally, the fact that this movie didn't get more awards consideration is a travesty, because this is one of the best movies of the year. A coming-of-age horror movie about trans identity and the horror that comes from not facing the unknown of your own identity. While the film does have its depressing aspects, the main thing that underlines all of the suburban dread is a sliver of hope. A chalk drawing beckons audience members to consider that there is still time, that just because you are older doesn't mean that it's too late to explore who you are as a person. And even if you take out the trans allegory, it works on a level that speaks to most people. It's never too late to do good. It's never too late to be who you are. It's never too late to love yourself. The only time when it's too late is when we are already dead. I Saw the TV Glow is a beautifully shot, mesmerizing dream in the pink opaque that gives viewers a light in the dark, a sprinkle of hope in a world that seems like nothing good can happen.
You gotta admit that I murdered that Hamlet.
Sing Sing was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Unfortunately, the theaters near me didn't have it playing, so I had to wait until I could snag the Blu-ray. And I am glad that I waited to make this list, because this is one of the most beautiful movies of the year. Sure, it's about finding solace in a terrible situation through the artistic expression of theater, something I clearly am biased towards as someone who found solace in a terrible situation through the artistic expression of theater. This is a film based on the real-life Sing Sing Prison's theater program, and stars Coleman Domingo among former inmates of the Sing Sing prison in their first film acting roles. Everyone does an amazing job. Coleman Domingo has been an actor that has been on my radar since Euphoria and has never disappointed me. He plays his character with beautiful empathy, and when his hopes for release gets dashed, it complicates him on a deep emotional level, that when he has his big breakdown moment, I felt every single word. Life is a process, and even when the process doesn't work, What Sing Sing tells us as an audience is that compassion, community, and empathy gets us all through even the worst of times in our lives. I greatly appreciated this film from start to finish. One big surprise this year to many who follow the animation category in the award circuit this year was a little film from Latvia, animated by only a small handful of people using Blender, called Flow. I'll be honest, I hadn't seen the movie when it was winning all the awards because, once again, my local theater offerings were lacking. So when I saw it finally was streaming, it quickly rocketed up to the top spot. Flow is one of the most beautiful movies this year. Sure, it's rough in a few places, but the fact that this was made by a small, dedicated crew is a feat that was just amazing to behold. The film has no dialogue, and that helps the film tremendously, as instead we get a greater focus on building an atmosphere and paying attention to the character animation. And that last part is done so well here that each character is easily recognizable to tell apart outside of who they are physically as characters. You can almost sense what these characters are saying to each other just by body language. I know it's tempting to go with an option that reflects the mood of the year, but truth be told, I live for works such as Flow, a hopeful film about the power of found community working together to weather a catastrophic event in their collective lives. And to tell this type of story with such simplicity and emotion is why I love movies. Sure, movies can show the darker sides of our lives with all the cynicism in the world, and I sometimes really appreciate those. But I believe that if we are to have any hope of making any sort of change in this world, we have to be able to imagine, to dream of better worlds and possibilities for everyone. And Flow gave me that in spades this year, without even uttering a single word. In the end, 2024 wasn't such a bad year. Sure, bad things happen. Every year that happens. Every year has bad things that happen. And when I look back on the films that affected me the most this past year, I guess the theme that ties most of it together is community and empathy. Things that we are all probably going to need to foster and nurture in the future, especially within ourselves. 2025 may look dark and depressing, but don't let your doom scrolling take away the one thing that is important to all of us, to you especially: your joy, your love, your compassion, your empathy, your creativity. This has been the best films of 2024. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. What was your favorite movie from last year? Let me know down in the comment section down below. I will also be putting a full list of movies I watched from 2024 in the description below. It'll link to my Letterboxd. And remember, everyone, stay creating, stay living, and stay loving, because you are loved. Take care. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.